Okay. We're going to wait another couple of minutes and get started on our webinar tonight on the 2-foot rule. So as you're coming in, you'll all be muted. We will be using the chat feature and the Q&A feature, but we'll talk about all of that right at 6:30. So welcome to everyone. You're seeing a couple of board members up. You can see their names if you hover your cursor over their photos. Coming from, gosh, we're all in the top. We're 2 of us are in one time zone, the other 2 are in the other time zone. So we've got some East Coasters and we've got some and we're not, what are we? Are we west? I guess we're kind of west. We're not quite west.
Right now.
We're the near west.
We're west to us.
There you go. Exactly. Too much fun. Love seeing all of you guys logging in. This is awesome. We love when we get a chance to talk with all of our members and share what's going on with everything. Oh, great. Yeah, that's excellent. Go ahead if you want to pop it into the chat feature where you're coming from. Black Creek, Wisconsin. Sounds like a very nice little place. Doesn't it? Excellent.
Close to us.
There you go. South Carolina, Wisconsin, West Virginia. Woo! Look at those go. So many. That's awesome. Some of you are staying up late. Some of you are still eating dinner, and we appreciate that you're all here. Outstanding. Okay, well, it is 6:30, so I'm going to go ahead and get things started, and then I'm going to turn it over to Monica, who's going to be presenting tonight. My name is Lori Schlesnagel. I am one of your board of directors. Joining us tonight on the Q&A feature is Pat. Where are you? She's in South Carolina. I always forget where you're at.
Rock Hill, South Carolina.
There we go. And then Monica's going to be presenting. She is from Conway, South Carolina. And our executive director, Amy, is with us from Cheyenne, Wyoming. You've got all of us, and I believe that Kim will be joining us as soon as she can. She had a puppy to take to puppy class tonight. She'll be joining us as soon as she can get on. So a couple of quick things before we jump in tonight. We are recording this so that people can watch it later. Even those of you or those people who are not here with us tonight can see it later once we get it posted. And we'll make an announcement once that is up. You have 2 options for questions. You have the chat feature, which you have all found quite nicely, and put in where you are from. And then we also have the Q&A feature, which is also at the bottom there. You'll see it where it has the 2 little talk bubbles that say Q&A. Pat and I will be manning those tonight and answering your questions. If there's something that we want to pass on to Monica, we will let her know that. I'm also going to say that we are only answering questions tonight in relation to the 2-foot rule and things that surround that. We wanted this webinar to be really specific. Some of our webinars are going to be just like that. Other webinars are going to be more general. So tonight we're focusing on that 2-foot rule and all that goes along with it. So if you get the reply that we're not answering that question tonight, we're letting you know that, but we're also giving you resources in order to be able to check on that rule someplace else or that question. So I think without further ado, I am going to turn it over to Monica. Pat, Amy, and I are going to disappear from sight for a little while and answer those questions. And we will do some talking about ATD's 2-foot rule. Take it away, ma'am.
Let's see. So this one should go relatively quickly compared to some of our other ones. But I'm going to go ahead and share here. And start. Okay, there we go. All right, so today we're talking about the 2-foot rule. I think sometimes we have, we think that it can either be really, really far away, but 2 feet is actually not that far away, but it can help keep a lot of people quite safe. Well, of course, you're not going to work. There we go. So our 2-foot rule, dogs must be kept at least 2 feet from other dogs and animals at all times while representing ATD on a visit or at an event. And you can find this listed in the safety precautions in the member handbook. So it does apply to other animals, not just other dogs, and not just Alliance of Therapy dogs. So why do we require this? It is to discourage play. A lot of people, we want our dogs to focus on other people when we're visiting, and that can be hard for dogs to do when they're getting in faces of other dogs. To ensure that the dogs have enough personal space for focusing on those people to be visited. To prevent any interaction between dogs that could possibly lead to an injury to a third party, the handlers, or their dogs. A lot of people think that we just want to keep them apart so they don't play. But we have seen issues where people can get tangled in leashes. Dogs, obviously, how they greet other dogs can be by sniffing their rears, which can cause circling. And so that can cause leashes to get tangled and someone can end up in the middle of that. So where does this apply? It applies to photos. It applies to 2 dogs visiting in the same household. So my husband and I visit the airport with both of our dogs. So we still have to abide by the 2-foot rule as soon as we exit that car and we have our heart tags on. Dogs who are friends. So we go visit with our friends. They still have to keep that 2 feet apart. Dogs who visit together. Dogs who are social butterflies. So because your dog loves other dogs, they should still abide by that 2-foot rule. Dogs and other animals, dogs and facility animals, and any situation with more than 1 dog animal. And I actually had a really odd encounter at the airport the other week. And I didn't even notice until someone had mentioned something and I looked down, and luckily we were far enough away before my dog noticed, but there was a cat laying on a bed in the middle of the airport. Apparently the cat cannot walk, so it just kind of hangs out on the bed the whole time. But then she proceeded to pick up the cat and try to stick it in my dog's face. So I had to get Oreo out of there really quickly and say, hey, you know, we're not allowed to let our dogs interact with other animals on visits for safety issues. And you are perfectly fine to, you know, say, hey, our organization that we visit with, they do not allow that. So insurance is not in effect if your dog is within 2 feet of another animal, including when posing with photos. So if you are doing this, then technically your heart tag should not be on, and your facility needs to know that, because I'm going to guess that they probably do not want you doing things that your insurance is not going to be in effect, because that is why they have registered therapy dogs visiting there. So they should not be within 2 feet, even for pictures. So here's a nice little video. The volume doesn't matter, so if you can't hear anything, there's nothing being said. Now this is even bigger than 4 feet or 2 feet apart.
Not freak out.
So they kept nice distance. The dogs were able to work and still enjoy being pet. So there are many different options for following the 2-foot rule. And you could see this is a lovely picture of keeping 2 feet between dogs, but still being able to photograph all of them. So staggering the space and the distance between everyone and the camera can really help you get everybody in the picture when you have a lot of dogs like this, but still being able to follow that rule. Being aware of your space and movement. So you kind of have to be proactive rather than reactive. Know that your dog may start to go forward, and pay attention to your dog and help get your dog out of that situation before they try to move forward. Or know that, hey, that dog's looking pretty interested in my dog. I'm going to back up a little bit and give a little bit of space. So it's important that we're proactive. Being aware of your environment. So making sure that you are paying attention to what is happening around you and your dog. You do have the option to use a leash that's shorter than 4 feet. You do not have to use only a 4-foot leash. So we find a lot of our larger dogs actually use a shorter leash than 4 feet to keep them closer, especially in a busy environment. Or if you find it really hard for your dog to visit with another dog and keep that 2 feet, you can always visit as a single team. If a dog prefers more than 2 feet, the handler should be sure to provide for the dog's needs. So if your dog needs more than 2 feet to visit, then it's up to you to make sure that you give your dog that space. And sometimes it does help to tell the other teams, hey, my dogs, need a little bit more space. Can we have that? Does that mean that your dog is aggressive or anything like that? Obviously not, because they've been tested. They should be fine. But some dogs might get a little bit more excited if the dog gets closer to them that. And if people are open and honest about it and you're being proactive about it, help your dog be successful in their visits. So what can we do if we have questions? You can check your member handbook to read it over. Make sure that you are looking at the rules and going over them every year when we send out new handbooks. Rules that have changed or things like that are in red. So those are always definite things to pay attention to. You can head to the website or your member portal at therapydogs.com. We do have Facebook and Instagram, but I will say a lot of times if it's a specific question, we might just tell you to contact the office. So you can call the office at that number, or you can email office@therapydogs.com. And that is pretty much it for our little handout there. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing.
Okay.
I think that worked.
Sorry. Start video. So, for whatever reason, I was not able to answer the questions. I had messaged Amy and asked her directly. So I do have some screenshots for you, Monica. I'm going to read to you. One of those lovely technology things that decided to be different tonight. So the first question, we did have a few comments about some different issues. Donna Ree had said she had an issue with another dog from another organization, and her dog has been asked not to come back to the facility. That would be something to take up with your facility. That's not necessarily something that was in relation to the 2-foot rule. It was in relation to the 2-foot rule, but that's since we're talking about that rule in particular tonight, that might be something to talk to the office about. But we did have a question from Melanie that says, is this rule for photos new? I thought there was an exception for group photos.
It is not new. We have always had it. I feel like maybe, I'm not really sure. Yeah, it's always kind of been a rule. So I'm not entirely sure why we would think it was new. No, we've always had it. So.
Yep. I believe maybe Kim or Pat can chime in. I believe at one point we did allow leashes to be dropped for photos. I shouldn't say that out loud probably, but it is, you do need to hold your leash and you do need to be 2 feet apart at this point.
Yep.
Dawn, I'm going to ask you to expand on that question a little bit so that we can answer it. We're going to go on to another question while you do that. So, we did have another, somebody commented about that their heart tag keeps coming off again. Go ahead and chat with the office. I'm sure they can give you some great ideas for how to keep that heart tag on. We had one comment with an extremely long dog. I request others to be 6 feet away. That's lovely. I love that you advocate for your dog. Then there was a question. Do you have any kind but firm things to say to another team member that doesn't take the hint when you tell them your dog needs at least 2 feet?
Well, I would remind them that it is a rule per ATD. And if you are continually having the same issue with this person after reminding them, you are more than welcome to contact the office and they can help kind of give you those next steps of what you can do after that.
Okay.
Lori, there's another question.
Pat.
Is the 2-foot rule intended for just when they are working under ATD? And the answer is yes, it's an ATD rule. So if you're doing a visit and it's not an ATD visit and you're not wearing your red heart tag, there is no requirement that you follow the 2-foot rule. There is also no insurance coverage.
Yep.
Okay. Another question, Monica. What is the right course of action if, for example, a resident dog at an assisted living facility runs up to a therapy dog?
I usually step in front of my dog. And hopefully someone that works there is around, and I would let them know that, you know, we have a 2-foot rule. Our dogs cannot play while I'm on a visit. And if they're not willing to do something about it, then I would probably at that time leave, and just let them know, hey, I can't visit when we have dogs that are loose. Looks like Amy has something to add.
Yeah, the office gets this question a lot because people will go into facilities and there's resident dogs that are not kept on leash or not kept in the room where they should be. We want to remind members that before you start visits or set up visits at a facility, that's a question you ask, that there's no off-leash dogs on the premises when you come in. And if there are dogs that reside at the facility, that you just simply ask that they be contained to their room, and that you be aware of where they might be so that you can try and avoid any situations arising. We recently had a member that was on a visit and an off-leash dog ran up and attacked her therapy dog. So luckily everyone was okay and they were able to get the dogs apart, but it really startled her as a visitor. And she said she learned the hard way how important it is to ask a facility before entering if they have all dogs and animals secured.
Yep. Poor thing.
Okay. Dawn expanded on the question when I asked her to, and she wants to know, so the 2-foot rule when they're actively working, visiting, and not for when they are at leisure and or in a working situation, correct? And the answer is you are correct. Yeah. That's in real life, you don't have to do that. Only when you're representing ATD on a
Your
visit.
dog can never play ever.
Nope, just for when you're representing ATD. Okay. Okay. Yep. We feel sorry for that dog team too, Candy. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I have a couple of questions here. Is it okay to have a longer than 4-foot leash on the dog if you know it will be the only dog visiting? And the answer is no, it is not a longer than 4-foot leash. If you have a longer than 4-foot leash, even if there are no other animal, your dog is still way out in front of you visiting people. And it's your job to really advocate for your dog, and that you're not always sure how people will approach your dog or grab your dog. You really want your dog to be close to you. And so it's a requirement regardless of whether there are other animals around.
Yes. So one of our other rules is your leash must be 4 foot or less.
Yep. Another question, if your local pet therapy organization is having a social event that is a picnic, must the dog stay 2 feet apart when we're having an event like this? Must they stay on leashes at the picnic with the? So for me, the question is this an ATD therapy visit? If this is a social visit and it happens to be with your local therapy group, but it's a social visit, and you have no expectation that you will be visiting people in a therapeutic environment, or that you will be counting it as a dog visit, you should not have the red heart tag on. It's strictly a social visit. You're not covered by insurance, and you have no requirement to stay 2 feet apart.
Okay.
Another question. I got a bunch of questions now. If that kind of situation happens, does that mean the insurance would not cover any claims? If something happens when you're on an ATD visit and you don't abide by the 2-foot rule, your insurance coverage is not in play. You know, insurance companies look for reasons to save money and not necessarily pay for claims. And so if you're found not following the rules when you're on a visit and something happens, even if it's not related to the 2-foot rule, if you've got a 6-foot leash on, or if you don't abide by the 2-foot rule, or there's some other violation of ATD rules, the insurance company, when they investigate, will look to that and find a reason not to pay for your claim.
Whatever they have to do to not pay money.
Yep. If to use both hands for a moment, is it permissible to stand on the leash for a few moments while you plug in a computer or similar, I guess, or similar equipment? The answer is no. Figure out a way to do it without both hands. Ask for assistance. Use one hand. It's not okay to stand on the leash, because while you're standing on the leash, your dog can roam. They can't see me. I'm using my hands. Your dog can roam. I can't turn the video on. Your dog can roam and be out there 4 feet away from you, behind you where you can't see him. So no, it's not okay. Your dog's leash has to be held in your hand, except for those very few allowances made by ATD, such as if you're taking a picture of your dog and there are no other animals or people around, you happen to be on facility property, you can drop the leash. If you're, so the picture, if your dog is doing a trick or a presentation that requires that you not hold the leash, you can drop the leash for that brief period of time when they're doing that, and then you must pick up the leash again. If on a visit and my dog is hurt, does insurance cover my dog? Now, that's not quite a leash rule, but no, it doesn't. And Amy, double check me on this. The insurance does not cover your dog. The insurance covers the facility. It covers the people you are visiting, but does not cover you or your dog if you're injured. That would be up to whatever health insurance you might have. Go ahead, Amy.
Yeah, when you guys, whenever anyone goes through testing, the release of claims that you sign says that Alliance of Therapy Dogs does not cover you or your dog from injury while participating in animal assisted therapy as representing ATD. So the insurance we provide is liability only, and it covers the people engaging with your dog while you're providing that service to them. So our insurance does not cover the handler or the dog. It's liability only.
Okay. Does a bark in the park event as a recruiting event, would the 2-foot rule apply? I assume yes, but it is a publicity recruiting event different from working. If it's a publicity and recruiting event and it's for recruiting for ATD, then it absolutely counts. And you guys jump in if you want, if you have any.
You're doing great.
I might add to that, and I apologize, I came in late, but if you are representing ATD at a talk, at a conference, if you are presenting at the talk and you are representing ATD, all rules are enforced.
Okay. What do you do if somebody at the facility you're visiting is deathly afraid of dogs? Well, firstly, you should always request whether that person wants to see your dog or not from a distance. And certainly never approach if the person says they don't want to see your dog. Now, from my experience, sometimes people will say, oh, yes, yes, yes. And then as you get close, you see their body language change and they very clearly no longer want to see your dog. So it's really up to you to anticipate, accept what they say, but then if you see a change that indicates differently, stop and don't approach. The last thing you want to do is frighten somebody that you're visiting and potentially frighten your dog if that person gets really frightened and ends up screaming. where are we? We're almost at the end.
And then we've got some in the chat box to address, so.
Okay. If we're trying to abide by the 2-foot rule, but a random off-leash animal comes up to us, are we still covered by insurance or does that become invalid? Go ahead, Lori. It says you're going to answer this live.
Yeah, I just marked it. I think that might be an Amy question.
Yeah, again,
Yeah.
it's liability only insurance. So we are only liable for those you're visiting. And if an off-leash dog is within 2 feet of your dog, I understand that that's not within your control, but nothing about that would be covered by ATD insurance because it's 2 dogs interacting violates the 2-foot rule, then you're not in compliance with that rule and you're not covered by insurance.
The final one, I have a patient who thinks my dog is hers while we're visiting. She wants to hold the leash, put her fingers around the leash while I'm holding it. Is this okay? If you're using a single leash, I would say it's okay for that person to be holding the leash as long as you continue to be in control. And if you can, I would hold the leash closer to the dog than where that hand is, so that person can't jerk on the leash. If you're doing a walking kind of a situation and the person really wants to feel like they're walking their dog, bring a second leash with you. Hook up the 2 leashes, and then that person can very comfortably hold the leash, feel in control of the dog when you really have control.
Excellent. Okay,
You're
so
on, Laura.
I've been following along on chat, so I'm hoping I'm going to catch all of these. So does the end of the tail require a full 2 feet? My dog is a Great Pyrenees Malamute mix. If his tail goes up, the 2 feet can suddenly turn into a few inches. Suggestions. So those of us with bigger dogs have a little bit different situation because that you're exactly right. So at that point in time, if that tail goes up, you need to be moving away. Because at that point in time, another dog could grab onto that tail. And so that few inches became a problem. So yes, you want to make sure that that tail is 2 feet from other animals. It's always nice when you have a dog that doesn't have tails, but that's not a factor here. Often the surprise factor alone can create a potentially dangerous outcome when my dog is caught off guard by a resident dog and reacts. Absolutely. So we want to always be aware of our surroundings. And like Amy said earlier, that resident dog should be put away during your visit in a safe place away from you and your dog. Okay. Go ahead, Amy.
I'm unmuting myself. The thing we've had come up is someone has asked a facility to lock a dog up. They came back and had the same issue again. I would say if that happened to me personally as a volunteer, I would tell the facility, I'm sorry, I can't come back. It's unsafe conditions for me and my dog. So you always need to be an advocate for yourself and for your dog. And if you realize that the facility is not being respectful of that and not making it a safe place for you to volunteer, it's absolutely okay to dismiss yourself and find another facility that understands the importance of that.
Yep, exactly. Kim, I think you're in the same problem I have. Your comments are only going to the rest of us, not to the people watching. They're only going out to hosts and panelists. But please bear with us while we deal with technology issues, because Zoom webinars appear to be different literally every time we do them. So thank you, Zoom. If a handler is at a visit without the dog they're certified with, may they hold the leash of another ATD dog if that handler needs help or to use the restroom? And ladies, the answer is no. The dog is not your dog and you are not certified with that dog. If a handler needs help with a dog and they need to take the dog out to their car and have you stand near the car and keep an eye on the dog, that's absolutely fine, but you may not hold that leash. You are not insured. Okay, all parts of the dog, trying to check. I always have 2 leashes, exactly. Don't forget, if the dog isn't comfortable in any way with the client holding the leash, the dog's needs are more important than the client's needs, absolutely. Some of you guys are chatting with each other, so I'm trying to discern that really quickly. Oh, I know somebody had asked about where to get 2-foot leashes. I sent everybody either to Etsy or to Amazon. If you search 2-foot leashes on either one of those, you will find any color, so many different options. We are not affiliated with either of those, although if you do shop on Amazon, make sure you do Amazon Smiles for ATD. But sorry, I had to stick that in there a little bit. But yeah, if you search 2-foot leashes, you will be able to find something. It can be a little bit, you can't go to your local PetSmart sometimes to find it, but you can find them. They are also sometimes called traffic leads. So, and you can check the different lengths there. Jared says if the facility is unable to keep the dogs locked up, it's time to find another location. Hi, Jared. Thank you for adding that. Okay.
I have another one, Lori.
Okay, go ahead.
If you're in a closed room with a small group and the dog is doing various tricks, can you take the leash off the dog? And the answer is yes. You can briefly take the leash off your dog while the dog is doing a trick. Of course, there are many times when you can do tricks with your dog and keep them on leash. So it would only be if it's a requirement, if you're doing something that requires that the dog be off leash. Also remember that if there are other teams in that room and your dog is off leash, you still have to abide by the 2-foot rule. Amy, you had something to add?
Yeah, it's just for the trick. If your dog's interacting with people in the room, they should be on leash. They should not be interacting with people when they're off leash. So they can briefly be off leash to do the trick, and then you need to clip the leash back on before everyone starts petting and engaging the dog, because that is the rule that's in place, is that you need to have control of your dog while it's interacting with people.
Monica?
And also your trick cannot be your whole visit. So you cannot spend the whole visit off leash because your dog is riding in a car or something like that. So your purpose is to go and visit with members, so they can do a trick off leash, but they do need to be on leash and, doing the actual visit with people.
We have another question where there's a little confusion. Is the 2-foot rule, is the rule a 4-foot leash on a visit and a 2-foot leash if another dog is there? The rule is that you must have no leash longer than 4 feet whenever you're on a visit. You can use a leash that is shorter than 4 feet. And many people who have larger dogs use 2-foot leashes instead of 4-foot leashes because it gives them more control over their dogs and they can hold their dogs closer. So the requirement is no more than 4 feet on a leash, on a visit, whether there are other dogs there or not.
Okay. There is a question here that I think we kind of passed over here, Pat, when we were going through. I visit an independent living facility where one resident has a caged parrot with limited space. So my suggestion would be visit with that person maybe just outside their room. Or have them meet you in the hallway or in an activity space or in the lobby or something like that. Just that way there's no question about whether you're violating the 2-foot rule or not, and you are still visiting that person who it sounds like must want to visit with you even though she has a parrot. So obviously an animal lover and wants to visit with the dog. So I would look for a different space in which to visit with that person.
It kind of goes along for me with Betty, who said, I had a facility want me to visit only in the lunchroom. Know your dog where they're comfortable. If your therapy dog happens to be also a hunting dog, they may have a lot of interest in that bird. Other dogs may not. I had a therapy dog that wasn't food motivated. So for him to be in a cafeteria didn't mean anything for him. Other dogs, it would have been a very uncomfortable situation. Monica.
Also, think about the other animals' feelings too. Is that bird actually going to be comfortable with your dog getting that close to them if you end up closer than 2 feet? Heck, is that dog even going to be, or that bird going to be comfortable if your dog's within 6 feet? So they have feelings too.
For sure. Lots and lots of great suggestions for shorter leashes. Lots of support for each other. I love seeing that. Yep, I see somebody saying, don't be sad. Things have really changed. Absolutely. Keep visiting, keep calling places, keep asking to do visits. Things change regularly in our area. So don't give up. Keep trucking and keep working on finding those places to visit. Trying to look and see. Yep, there we go. Kim answered Russ's question. Can you crochet the leash to become shorter? Nope. You cannot do that. You can make it shorter than 4 feet if you'd like to do that. If you want to loop it up into your hand and make it shorter, I do that all the time, but I don't have it permanently shorter than 4 feet unless I have a less than 4 feet leash. I was so glad to hear that, Gloria. She says that schools and domestic abuse shelters love our visits. So we've talked a lot about a lot of different things. We were focused on the 2-foot rule. If you have any more questions regarding the 2-foot rule, we'll give it another few minutes for you to pop those into either Q&A or into the chat, so that you can ask those questions. We know that this can be a tough rule for some folks to follow, and we wanted to make sure that we answered all of our questions, all of your questions, so that you could hopefully be able to work that out a little bit better for yourself and your dog. It's getting dark here. I need to turn on lights. Sorry, guys.
There is a question you missed. If your leash is 6 foot, but you double clip it to fit on the harness, creating a 4-foot leash, does this work? So as long as it's permanently 4 feet or less, when it's clipped, you can. But you can't like knot it or tie it or anything like that. So it has to be permanently 4 feet or less with those clips.
Excellent. We do have a quick visit on Zoom. Do Zoom or video visits not count anymore towards the requirement for visits? They do not. So you're going to want to be getting back out there and visiting in person. You absolutely can log those in your portal as a Zoom or video visit, but they do not fulfill your 1 visit every 3 months requirement any longer.
There's another one, Lori. Can you wrap the 6-foot lead around your hand and make it a 4-foot lead? The answer is no. It has to be legitimately permanent and legitimately 4 feet or shorter.
And if any questions did get skipped unintentionally, we're trying to keep up as we go. Do know the office is always there to answer questions, so you can always email us or call us. We're glad to respond, and we're pretty quick at getting back to everybody. So if anything did get missed that wasn't answered, do just reach out, and we're glad to provide answers to questions. And I'm very glad to see the people attend and the engagement on this.
We do have a question in Q&A. My dog doesn't retrieve, but for dogs that are skilled to retrieve a ball as part of a client's physical rehab, what are the leash rules? So you can, as long as you are in a safe space, your dog is the only one there. You can remove that leash for the retrieving, but as Monica said earlier, be sure that when the dog goes back to visiting with the client, that leash goes back on. I'm seeing I'm seeing a ton of thank you. And we hope you do more. 4-foot wall in a stroller too. Yes, that is correct. I actually just got approved with one of my dogs in a stroller, and I did our first visit, and gosh darn it, but 4 feet in a stroller is a lot of leash. So the next time I'll be doing a 2-foot leash. So just so y'all know, it is 4 feet or less wall in that stroller. But I'm here to tell you, I'm going to go 2 feet next time. We've got lots of thank yous, lots of thank you for great information. Hi, Don. Don says, thanks for joining. He hopes everyone has a great night. Dawn, not Don, Dawn, wants to know when the next webinar is. Thank you. We're glad you like these. We work really hard to bring them to you. So we're glad that you do like them. I'm not sure when the next one is. Maybe that'll be our goal for the next webinar, that we can announce the following one. So we'll work on that so we can tell you that.
There was a quick question about logging, and that's a good question. We are going to require logging, but you only need to log at least one visit per quarter. So you don't have to go in every, you do 5 visits a week. You don't have to log absolutely every one. Just be sure you get in that one a quarter, so that we know who's working and can keep data on that to find out where people are at.
Right. Helps us with grants and different things like that.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Pat.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. If you do log more than that once a quarter, it helps us understand the activity out there. It really
Yes.
helps us understand our impact for ourselves. It'll help us understand where we're having more impact and where we need to focus to have more impact in terms of geographically, as well as with grants, as Lori mentioned.
I'm gonna refer Kathy. Like I said, I can't just answer individuals because whatever weird Zoom things are happening. But Kathy sent a note that says, I have a 6-foot Weiss walkie leash. I don't know what that is. So Kathy, if you could give Amy a call in the office and talk through whether what you're asking is something that we allow. Since I'm not familiar with it, I think it'd be easier if you just talk to her directly. And let me get down. I have lots of thank yous. We are so glad you're all here. We love bringing this stuff to you. We are happy that you are enjoying it and learning something. Lots of great questions, good reviews. I know you guys put a lot of leash links in there. I'm sure those were super great, and people are going to be checking all of those out. Somebody asked if it's mandatory for logging. It currently is not mandatory, but stay tuned. It will be.
Yes.
Another logging question. Do you have a copy of my log book? I had been logging since last year. If not, please let me know. I'd suggest you call the office. Amy, that's probably your question, is whether you can provide that.
And I think that we're going to put out, sorry, Amy, I jumped in there. We're going to go through logging as it gets closer to 2023 through the steps. For those of you who are already doing it, thank you very much. For those who aren't, don't panic. We'll go through the steps and walk you through it.
All right. So there's a lot more logging questions. Hold those questions. Watch for announcements. Watch for educational events. We'll help you. We're not expecting you to just figure this out on your own. So we will definitely be there for you. I'm trying to read through. Every time I start to read, you guys keep asking more questions. Okay.
Yeah, I think we could go for a few more minutes and then we'll cut off the video recording just so that it's more easy to share
For
going
sure.
forward. But I'm glad there's questions.
For sure. So let's do a last call for any 2-foot rule or leash related questions in the next minute or so. So if you have anything we've not answered, go ahead and then we'll go through. There's a couple things I want to make sure that I answer that are not related to the 2-foot rule and to leashes. The recording will be available. We typically will post a link to it. It will be available on the website and it will be available on our YouTube channel. Let's go. We'll wait till I have 7:12 on my computer. When 7:13 pops up, we'll stop recording, Amy. Bye, Kurt. Kurt says that we all rock. So I'm feeling kind of good about that. It was a long work day, Kurt. I appreciate that.
We do have a YouTube. Someone asked where they can see the recording.
Yep, absolutely. Go ahead, Amy, if you want to shut off the recording.